is that the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. Mr Charlie Elphicke.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to oppose this bill. Like my honourable friend, for whom I have the deepest respect, I supported Remain in the referendum. And in my constituency in Dover, as with my honourable friend's constituency, a majority voted to leave. And so it seemed to me that as a Democrat, and having voted to have a referendum in 2016, and that referendum having taken place with 17.5 million people having voted to leave the European Union, a majority, that we must respect the referendum. And so from that day I made very clear that I would do everything I could to ensure that the people's vote was respected, that we made sure that we executed the instructions that we had been given. And we need to be very clear. The people of this country didn't vote for Remain, they voted for Leave. And that's why we must take no Brexit off the table. And to have the idea of a second referendum that would be the Prime Minister's deal or Remain would load that question in a way which is entirely wrong and entirely unacceptable. I think it would be a travesty of our democracy. And I'd just like to say to the House why it was I originally backed Remain. I backed Remain because I thought that a big project like Brexit would be very difficult for Britain. If we couldn't manage a basic patient record system in the NHS, what hope do we have with a really huge project like Brexit? And I was also concerned that members of this House would also think that their constituents might be very clever to elect them, but not so able to decide a big decision like leaving the European Union. That they might not accept that decision and they might fight it all the way. I worried that our civil society wasn't strong enough. I worried that our machinery of government would blow a fuse in trying to manage a project of this sort. And in that, I have not been disappointed. But the vote having taken place, I thought that we had to respect the referendum. So I put my shoulder to the wheel on how we can make ready at day one, deal or no deal, how we can make sure that it's a success, how we didn't have to hand over all this money that they wanted, how they had no legal right to demand it, to make the best negotiating case for our country. And the worst negotiating case for our country is to rule out no deal, because if the other side knows that you won't get up and walk away from the table, they know they've got you. And if they've got you, then they're going to give you a really rubbish deal. So the best way we get a good deal is by being prepared and ready on day one not to do a deal. Now, what have we seen? We've seen the people who don't want us to leave the European Union finance our campaign with foreign money, a campaign for a second referendum. Their spokesman from Davos telling us how we should lead our lives and how we shouldn't leave at all, and they want to have a loaded question. And then they try to frighten people. And I think the really wrong thing is the way they've tried to frighten people, telling people that we will die of thirst because our water will be poisoned, that we will die of starvation because no food will arrive, that our pets will die in quarantine, that our planes will never take off. This kind of irresponsible talk is what makes people so angry, because they say, actually, the establishment should be working to solve these problems and working to make sure that we're thoroughly ready, not trying to scare us, not trying to tell us how bad the economy will be, but actually make it work and make a success of it. And we've seen so often with these sort of Project Fear stories that they lose credibility. And in my constituents shake their heads and say, this is not credible. No, I don't think Project Fear is right, and it's the wrong thing to do. It's irresponsible. But on the other hand, I don't subscribe to Project Pangloss, that it will all be a walk in the park. I think if we left without a deal, there would be bumps in the road. I think some of those bumps could be quite jarring, and we should be honest and open about that. But I don't think we should try and frighten people. I don't think we should try and tell people that they were stupid. I don't think we should try and tell people that they didn't know what they were doing. I don't think we should try and tell people that they didn't have informed consent. They were too stupid in 2016 to know which way to vote. I think people made up their minds about the European Union over many years, and they knew exactly what they were concerned about. And when they had the question put to them, they made the decision. And I suspect very strongly that if they were asked again, they'd make the same decision again, because they would say the establishment are not listening to us, we will tell them again. And they will. And worse than that, they would say, we will not only tell the establishment again, but to make a reverse decision, to turn our country round in 180 degrees, would make our country a laughingstock across the world. So that's why I think to have a second referendum would mean that by an even greater majority we'd vote to leave. But the real travesty of it is this, and I'll just finish with this. The real travesty with this would be this, that were we to go down the route of a second referendum, we'd just have endless Brexit, endless uncertainty. And the key message that people every day from my constituency give to me is, look, deal or no deal, let's just get on with it, put it in place, and move on to the other things that concern us: jobs, money, schools, hospitals, and how we're going to build a better Britain for the future across the whole piece, and stop banging on about Brexit.
Order. The question is that the Honourable